can't believe I did it again. I forgot the audience question yesterday, which is such a treasured part of this show. But thank goodness I have you guys who I absolutely adore to keep me in line and make sure that if I forget, I am reminded very quickly. So thank you to all of those who said, Ro, what about the audience question? And it comes from Liam today, and we're going to get to it. I promise you, I will not forget. And if you have a question that you would like me to answer, please pop it in the comment section below or be in contact with us via our website. The contact details are there. But in the meantime, if you didn't know, I am Rolene Marks. This is the Israel Brief, brought to you by these guys, Lay of the Land, where we take a look at those top stories making headlines in Israel. We do it every Monday to Thursday. And of course, this is a very solemn day today, the day of Tisha B'Av, the 9th of the Hebrew month of Av. It is a mourning day in Israel, and for Jews around the world, it is a day that we pray, that we lament the destruction of our holy temple and the calamities that have befallen the Jewish people since basically the dawn of time, the destruction of our temple, the Inquisition, the Holocaust, and of course what we are living through now, the 7th of October, and the war that has ensued as a result. And we do this while we are waiting for Iran, a country that has sworn to our annihilation, to attack us. It is day 312. We still have 115 hostages being held captive by Hamas, an internationally recognized terrorist organization in the Gaza Strip. We want them home now. Let's take a look at those top stories, and we begin with Iran. And another uneasy night for Israelis, as we thought that there was a high possibility that Iran could attack us during the course of last night. Well, they didn't. But yesterday, towards the end of the day, Fox News said that an attack could come within 24 hours. Well, nothing has happened yet. Some intelligence believes that any kind of attack is likely to take place before Thursday. Thursday is the day that negotiators from Qatar, from Egypt, from Israel, and they're trying to get Hamas, who are saying that they're not willing to come to the negotiation table. They don't believe that there is anything new to negotiate, but it is believed that an attack could take place before then. We've also had reports that the IRGC, that's the Iranian Revolutionary Guard Corps, want a bigger attack than has initially been planned. Now, yesterday, news broke that intelligence had picked up that drones and missiles were already positioned in Iran. Israel's, or the IDF's spokesperson, Rear Admiral Daniel Hagari, addressed the nation last night. He said, "We are at peak preparedness. We are ready to defend anywhere at any time, and also can pivot from that defense to offense." He also stressed that the guidelines for Israeli civilians have not changed. And as Israelis, we know that when we get guidelines from the Home Front Command, that is the unit in the IDF responsible for our safety and our preparation, then we will know that an attack is imminent. And also last night, the White House released a statement. The United States and Italy have joined the United Kingdom, France, and Germany, warning Iran against attacking Israel and supporting Israel's right to defend herself. Of course, we will keep you updated as much as we can. In the event of an attack, and if by some reason it strikes a major electricity line or network or something, there won't be an Israel brief. So if you don't see an Israel brief That's a possibility because we're looking at a possible attack on any of our infrastructure as well as civilians. So that is the worst case scenario. But we know and we fully support our incredible Air Force, our Israel Defense Forces, and all of our allies, regional and international, that we know are standing with us. And just to remind everybody that Jordan yesterday said that they will open their airspace to Israel as well, as they did on the 13th of April. Israel's national security minister, very, very controversial and polarizing figure here in Israel, Itamar Ben-Gvir, along with several other members of Knesset, went up the Temple Mount earlier today. Now, why is this hugely controversial and such an issue? The Temple Mount, which sits on top of the Western or Wailing Wall, which is where the two mosques, the Dome of the Rock and the Al-Aqsa Mosque are situated. That is the Temple Mount. Now, according to what we call here the status quo, non-Muslims are allowed to go up the Temple Mount, but they are not allowed to pray. That is seen as highly, highly provocative. And in Israel, we try to maintain what we call that status quo, because whatever happens on the Temple Mount affects not just us here in Israel, but billions of Muslims around the world, and really is a flashpoint in the Middle East. Ben-Gvir and MKs went up the Temple Mount and were heard praying loudly. Now, the Prime Minister's office lashed out very quickly, saying that this is a deviation from the status quo and that our policy has not changed. However, Ben-Gvir doubled down later in the day, saying that it is his policy to allow prayer on the Temple Mount. So it is a very, very complicated issue. And if you recall, the events of the 7th of October, the atrocities were named by Hamas as Operation Al-Aqsa Flood. The Al-Aqsa Mosque, whatever happens there, is seen as rationale for carrying out attacks, which is why we want to keep the status quo at all costs. It's also about just being respectful. Hamas announced on their Telegram channel last night that one hostage had been killed by his captor and that two female hostages in a separate incident had been seriously wounded, and efforts were underway to take care of them. Now, this was quickly picked up and broadcast by mainstream media around the world. However, the IDF were very quick to respond today to say that they have no intelligence of such events happening and are investigating. And the IDF have also been clear to anyone, and I know a lot of people out there follow a variety of WhatsApp groups and social media and a lot of armchair journalists. The IDF have said and stressed all throughout this war that any news about hostages will come from them. So if you hear from a source that is not the IDF, please don't take it as verified. The IDF are your source for official verified news about any of the hostages. And finally, it is Tisha B'Av. It is a very, very solemn day here in Israel and for Jews around the world. Many people are fasting. Many people are reading from the book of Lamentations, saying what we call Eicha, and saying dirges, known in Hebrew as kinot. And this year it's particularly difficult for all of us. There have been several kinot written for the 7th of October. We remember throughout our history all those calamities that befell us. And I'm going to read to you a little from President Herzog's address last night. There was a gathering at Hostage Square, and I will read to you a little bit of what the president said. He said, "O Zion, weep bitterly for thy children." And he says, "We recite this beautiful and sad lamentation every year as part of the Tisha B'Av service. But this year, on the eve of Tisha B'Av, in the year 5784, as we mark together thousands of years since the destruction of the temple, We also mark 10 months of pain since that terrible wound inflicted upon us by our enemies with such monstrous cruelty. On the morning of Simchat Torah, it seems that even the lamentations take on different meaning, as if they were written from the very heart of the current Israeli reality, from our aching, worrying, yearning, and anxious hearts for our sisters and brothers, women and men, children and the elderly, parents and infants who are still in the tunnels of Hamas. Their cries must be heard in every corner of the globe. And he goes on to say, all the light has long gone. Don't you leave too. Come, mother, come sit with me for a while. These words were written more than 50 years ago by Leah Naor, one of the founders of Kibbutz Nachal Oz, whose beloved, dear and brave people built their home at the gates of Gaza to be a wall for us, as it was said. Words one cannot read these days without them shaking us and crying out to us about families that are still torn to shreds, about communities that are fragmented and divided, about an entire nation with a gaping hole in its heart. And he goes on to say, I bless your shared call, and I know so many of you out there who are also praying. My brothers and sisters, to advance the efforts and to take determined, united and brave action to free the hostages, and our shared hope that the upcoming summit this Thursday will bring good news that will return our sisters and brothers. It will not be easy and it will not be simple, but the voices of our brothers cry out to us from the dungeons of Gaza, the living and the dead, civilians and soldiers. We must not break the most sacred bond between us to bring each and every one of us home. And he says, I would like to address the tense and complex days we are in after Iran and all our enemies in the axis of evil have declared their intention to attack us with great force soon. I emphasize, the State of Israel is prepared to face this multi-front threat. We have top-tier military capabilities. We have an air force and advanced multi-dimensional defense systems that are on high alert and ready. We have thorough intelligence. We have emergency and rescue services and systems and a home front more prepared than ever before. We have diplomatic and security alliances and partners committed to thwarting any enemy action. Foremost among them, the strongest power in the world, the United States, which is committed to our security. And before I forget, because I know you'll remind me, naughty Roro, let's take a look at that audience question, and it's very, very relevant. It comes from Liam, who says, is there a chance Iran won't attack? And that is really, really a good question, because many people have been thinking, well, we're waiting and waiting and waiting. And of course, it's had an effect on our commerce, on tourism. And is that the threat? However, I do believe that Iran will attack. To have Khamenei be assassinated on their home territory is a massive embarrassment to the Iranians. And they are usually very measured and very careful. They think things through very, very clearly. We certainly don't underestimate our enemies, and they were caught off guard. And I think that they came out very quickly to say that there will be a retaliation without thinking of how. So I think these 2 weeks, first of all, have been to plan the how, but also to draw out as long as possible as much psychological torture as they possibly can. But to answer your question, Liam, unfortunately, I think they will attack us, but we stand ready and prepared with all faith in the Almighty and all faith in our defense forces. So that's it for today. Just remember, if you want to check out our website, please do so at www.layoftheland.online, our Facebook page at Lottle's site, YouTube right here at the Israel Brief, and on Twitter at Lay of the Land 5. I'm Rolene Marks. God bless you all. Thank you for standing with us so resolutely. Take care of yourselves. Take care of each other. I love you all. See you tomorrow.